I'm a business manager and I'm not a politician, so I just tell it the way it is. Unless we get our spending under control at the state level, we're going to continue to have these problems. Some folks in the race are saying, you know, what we really need to do is just cut taxes and we'll bring jobs to Maine. Since our state is broke, we have no new money. If we were to cut taxes, we could push our state into insolvency or bankruptcy. So what we have to first do is get out spending. There's a management process that we have to go through. First, we need to make sure that we become one of those states that only spend what we take in. I mean, this is, your families have to do this, and businesses have to do this, and Scott, I'm sure you have to do that over here. I mean, you can't. I'm sorry?
No, we're rolling in dough.
Yeah. So you have to do that first, spend only what we take in, and then when we're able to get our fiscal house in order, then we can start reducing taxes. The benefit of that, it'll help people. And second of all, it'll create incentives for businesses to locate here and create jobs and keep our young kids here. They can't make it, that's why they're leaving. First of all, taxes need to go down, and I won't be supporting this because it's really, you're collecting the same amount of revenue just through a different mechanism. This is not tax reduction. So it's the worst statement in the world to make, because what it makes to the business community, the statement it makes, is that Maine still is not serious about reducing taxes. Plus, we have a $10 billion industry in the state called tourism. I can't imagine saying, come to Maine, vacation here, we love to have you up here, and by the way, we're going to tax you more when you get here. That's not the right philosophy. Let me tell you how I look at the situation, Rick. It really is. It's a good one question, you're right. We have a very, very serious problem on our hands in this state. It's what I call a demographic winter. And that's whereby we have such a period of time, 30 years of mismanaging our state economy, that inadvertently, of course, our legislature and the former folks in the executive branch have created one of the worst business climates in the country. It just is what it is. Any metric you want to look at, whether personal income growth or regulatory environment or taxation, whatever, it's one of the worst business climates in the country. It has been for a very long period of time. The end result of that, of course, is that we have a private sector that's been shrinking. And we tax it to death to pay for, rather, a growing public sector. It's no longer fiscally sustainable. Now, the end result of that is that our young folks can't find jobs in Maine, so they leave. Or you have folks in this part of the state that live in New Hampshire, or residents of New Hampshire, for the reasons that you were talking about, right? The other part that's very, very concerning to me is that more and more of our retirees, who tend to be well-heeled, have more assets, the kids are gone. One of the first things they do, and they're advised to do, is to change the state residency to avoid the level of taxation here in Maine. So if you think of this for a minute, we have a brain drain from our young kids who are no opportunities here, so they'd leave. And they're during their productive years where they could be, working and paying taxes if we had jobs for them. And more of our older people are changing the state residency, so instead of being here for 8-9 months out of the year, they're here for 1 day less than 6 months. So they can avoid that level of taxation. Now, the population that's left behind is growing older and poorer and more dependent on the state. So it is this death spiral we're in, and we don't have the tax revenues to support that anymore. It's no longer fiscally sustainable. So that's the problem. So the question becomes now, how do you solve it? And I'll try to couch it, Ray, if I may, in your comments. There are 9 states in this country that have no tax on income. There are 5 or 6 that have no tax on consumption or sales tax. And if you look at the relationship between the states who have the best economies and the highest per capita income and household income, and relate that to taxation, the states with the lowest taxes have the highest incomes. It just is what it is. It's a fact. So we have created inadvertently in the state a very expensive place to do business. It's not only taxes, it's healthcare costs, it's energy costs, but taxes are a big part of it. And we also have a very complicated place to do business. The regulatory environment makes it very difficult to do business in Maine as compared to other states. So what happens? Business owners and entrepreneurs look at Maine. They say it's a great place to raise your kids. Traffic jam is 4 cars behind a stop sign dawn, right? I mean, it's a great place to live and raise your kids, but I can't make it. So they don't set up shop, and jobs aren't formed. Now, the good news is that we know what the problem is. We also are a small state. The population of Maine is about half the size of Brooklyn, New York, 1.3 million. So we can fix this problem, but how do you affect change? And this is where I'm getting to the second part of your question, Ray, about the bureaucracy and the union and the legislature. You know, sometimes in a democracy, you really have to get right to the edge. It has to be so bad that you're sort of looking down into the abyss. We have no choice. The next governor faces a $1 billion, exactly, Mike, billion-dollar budget shortfall. $1 billion. So we have to fix this. Now, who's best equipped to fix it? It's certainly not someone from the political class. It's certainly not a career politician who's created the problem. Because if you look at the first rule of thumb in a bureaucracy, it's protect yourself. So that's why politicians don't make, for the most part, the very difficult decisions that will ensure the long-term prosperity of the enterprise. You have to do it in the private sector or you fail. But you don't do it in the public sector because you're looking at the next election. So you need someone from the private sector who couldn't care less about the next election. Someone's doing it for the right reason. You also need someone who has the experience in dealing with these problems. These problems are economic, fiscal. We haven't even touched upon yet the $9 billion in unfunded liabilities, economic, fiscal, and job-related. Those aren't political problems. Those are private sector problems. The problem we have with our legislators, well-meaning people, is they don't have experience for the most part in the private sector. They've never run a business, never met a payroll, never balanced a budget, never had to be very wise with their spending. Sort of a knee-jerk reaction in Maine is we get a problem, tax more. They don't cut spending, they spend more, and they tax more to pay for the spending. Now, as governor, what will I do? First of all, we'll audit every state program, department, and agency, flat out. And we'll find out where the waste is and where the redundancy of programs are, and we'll eliminate it because we have no choice. We have to come up with $1 billion.